It was during Truth or Dare at the alumni reunion, and the former campus queen was wasted. Someone asked her the most despicable thing she'd ever done. She pointed across the booth at me, giggling hysterically. I used his phone to delete his poor little girlfriend's desperate plea for help while he was in the shower, and then I texted back, "Drop dead." You guys wouldn't believe it, that pauper waited outside in the rain all night. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. Laughter erupted through the private room. Except for the man seated at the head of the table. The crystal wine glass in his hand shattered with a sickening crunch. Blood mixed with red wine streamed down his fingers. He stared at me, his eyes bloodshot, like he was seconds from murder. I calmly slid a napkin toward him. "Mr. Rhys, you should wipe up. It's soiled. Some things, once stained, can never be washed clean." The Carlisle Club, Manhattan's most exclusive private membership space, was entirely booked for the evening. The word was, a newly minted venture capital titan, worth 9 figures, had returned from overseas and wanted to flaunt his success to his old college crowd. When the manager handed me the gold-embossed wine list, his eyes held a fleeting, unreadable pity. "Scout," Mr. Davies said, his voice low. "It's the V888 suite tonight. If you don't want to go, I can assign someone else." I adjusted my ill-fitting server uniform, offering him a faint smile. "It's fine, Mr. Davies. That's our highest spending suite. The corkage fees alone will net me a decent bonus. I need the cash, you know." He sighed, patted my shoulder, and walked away. I pushed open the door to the V888 suite, the heat wave hitting me instantly, thick with the scent of expensive perfume, Cuban cigars, and something else, the dizzying, nauseating smell of burning money. In the center of the plush leather sofa sat the man I hadn't seen in 7 years. He had changed completely. Gone was the memory of the fiercely proud, intensely stubborn boy in a faded hoodie and threadbare jeans. In his place sat a polished, cold-eyed business mogul, exuding the effortless authority of a true power player. He was leaning back, listening to someone next to him, a detached, almost bored smirk playing on his lips. And nestled against him was the woman who had stolen him from me all those years ago, Genevieve "Jen" Sinclair. Jen was draped in a custom white Chanel dress, her neck flashing with a diamond necklace that caught the ambient light like a beacon. She swirled the contents of her wine glass, radiating the smug arrogance of a proud swan. "Oh, Holden's back in the States mainly for me, of course. He's shifting his company headquarters because, well, we're finally getting engaged." A chorus of sycophantic praise immediately erupted. The campus beauty and the brain, a match made in heaven. "Holden, you're on the cover of Forbes now. Jen, you lucked out. It's the ultimate turnaround story. Unlike some people who traded up for cash and bailed, bet they're regretting that decision now, huh?" The intentional barb hung in the air, and for a silent second, every eye in the room pivoted to me, where I stood in the corner, expertly uncorking a bottle. I felt nothing. Like a numb marionette, I sliced the foil with a corkscrew, twisted the worm, and slowly pulled the stopper. Bordeaux, left bank. Optimal pour after 20 minutes of decanting. I poured the breathing wine into the massive crystal goblet in front of Holden Rhys, my movements flawless, professional. Holden finally raised his head. His stare was a devastating cocktail, contempt, disgust, raw hatred, and a subtle flicker of something deeper, an arrogant indifference. He didn't reach for the glass, allowing me to hold it suspended in the air. My wrist, fatigued from balancing the heavy serving tray, gave a tiny, involuntary tremor. "Scout Davis?" He finally spoke, his voice a low, gravelly baritone. "I heard you dropped out of NYU before graduation. What happened? Did your trust fund boyfriend get bored and toss you out? Now you're scraping by, serving drinks in places like this?" The room fell silent, the audience waiting for the spectacle. Jen theatrically covered her mouth, feigning shock as she looked at me. "Oh my God, it is Scout. How are you dressed like that? Honey, if you're really hard up, just tell me. Even though you threw Holden over for money, we're still old classmates. I'd be happy to arrange something for you, maybe a janitorial position at my father's firm." She deliberately lingered on the phrase, "threw Holden over for money." The whispers of judgment started, a fine, biting spray. Serves her right. Holden was so devoted back then. That's karma. Look at the CEO he is now, billions. And her? Waiting tables. The tides turn, you know? 30 years down the road. I listened to the stinging comments with a blank expression, as if they were discussing a stranger. 7 years. I had built a fortress around my heart. I'd worked in the darkest corners of this city, washing dishes in scorching kitchens, moving inventory in freezing cold storage, being splashed with drinks by drunk patrons, and being screamed at by landlords calling me a beggar. Dignity. That broken thing had been pulverized into dust on that rainy night, 7 years ago. Mr. Rhys, your wine, I repeated, my voice steady. Holden fixed his gaze on my eyes, clearly searching for a hint of remorse, shame, or even tears. He was disappointed. My eyes contained nothing but endless fatigue and a chilling, vacant numbness. My indifference seemed to infuriate him. He suddenly raised his hand and slammed it down, violently knocking the wine glass out of my grasp. This vintage is too common, Holden said, pulling a crisp linen napkin from his pocket to wipe his hand. His eyes were arctic. Get me something else. A bottle with some real age. Something like that night, 7 years ago. He was humiliating me. 7 years ago, he was still a penniless college student who'd saved up for 3 months to buy a single bottle of cheap, corner store red wine for my birthday. We drank it straight from the bottle on the cold grass of the campus quad, our faces flushed, promising to stay together forever. Now, he was using that same memory to remind me of the price of betrayal. Jen giggled, playing along. Oh, Holden, don't be so hard on her. That wine costs a fortune, she couldn't pay for the broken glass if she sold everything she owns. Just apologize to Mr. Rhys, Scout, wipe up the mess, and we'll let it go. I knelt, retrieved a cloth, and began to carefully blot the scarlet stain from the expensive Persian rug. A tiny shard of crystal glass embedded itself in my fingertip, a sharp, familiar stab of pain. I didn't flinch. I merely calculated in my head, that's my commission gone. Plus the cost of the glass. Tonight's work, maybe half a month's wages, is now a loss. This was my life now. No romance, no poetry, only the brutal arithmetic of bills I couldn't pay and debts I couldn't outrun. As for love? That was a luxury only the rich could afford. My apologies, Mr. Rhys. I finished cleaning the last trace of wine, stood up, and maintained my humble, subservient posture. I will inform the manager to send up the finest bottle we have. Holden looked at the small bead of blood welling up on my finger. His pupil constricted momentarily, but the mask of icy indifference returned instantly. Get out. I didn't get out. Because Mr. Davies told me the client in V888 had specifically requested my service for the duration of the night. If I left, I'd lose the mandatory $2,000 tip and potentially have my base pay docked. I desperately needed the money. My mother's dialysis next month hadn't been covered yet, and the landlord was already texting about next quarter's rent. So, I went to the restroom to quickly bandage the cut, and then I returned to that suffocating, velvet-lined suite. When I pushed the door open again, the atmosphere had shifted. 3 rounds of drinks in, the impeccably tailored elite had started to drop their pretenses, revealing the ugly core of humanity beneath. They were playing truth or dare. It was a trite, yet endlessly effective game, especially fueled by alcohol, the perfect tool to rip the veneer off human decency. The marble table was littered with empty bottles, Louis XIII, Remy Martin, Ace of Spades. The combined cost of those bottles was enough for me to buy a closet-sized studio apartment in the outer boroughs. Jen was clearly drunk. Her cheeks were flushed, and she was practically draped over Holden, her eyes hazy, almost feverish with triumph. She was the star of the night, the biggest winner. The prospect of marrying Holden and becoming the envied Mrs. Rhys had made her reckless, almost giddy with hubris. All right. Next round. The class president, an awkward man named Sam, slurred his words. Who gets it this time? The empty magnum bottle spun quickly across the slick marble table, making a grating, unpleasant sound. Everyone held their breath, their eyes glued to the bottle's neck. Slowly, it stopped. The bottle pointed directly at Jen. Ooh. Jackpot for the campus queen. Truth or dare? Jen let out a throaty laugh, waving a dismissive hand. Truth. This princess has nothing to hide. Sam rubbed his hands together with a malicious grin, his eyes bouncing between me and General. He was clearly looking to stir up trouble. Fine, let's go with a juicy one. Jen, what is the most despicable, most heartless thing you've ever done in your entire life? The question dropped into the room like a stone. They were all adults, who didn't have a few dirty secrets. But this was a game, and the point was the shock value. Holden, who had been resting his eyes, merely lifted an eyelid at the question, offering no objection. In his mind, Jen was merely spoiled and occasionally petty, but certainly not capable of true malice. Jen let out a small burp, her gaze suddenly slicing through the crowd to land on me, where I was standing in the corner pouring water for a guest. A vile, triumphant smile curled her lips. The alcohol had dulled her judgment and amplified the jealousy and spite buried deep in her heart. The most despicable thing, you ask? Jen stumbled to her feet, her finger aimed directly at me. It was 7 years ago, the night of that huge thunderstorm. I went to Holden's shabby little rental. At the mention of 7 years ago, my hand convulsed, and the hot water in the carafe nearly sloshed over the rim. Holden's body, too, stiffened almost imperceptibly. Jen burst into hysterical laughter, as if recounting the most hilarious anecdote. Holden was in the shower. His cheap phone was on the table. And guess what? This pauper, Scout, texts him. And guess what she said? Ha 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 ha. She wrote, "Holden, please save my dad. I beg you. I only need 50,000. I'll be your servant forever. Tisk, tsk, tsk. So pathetic, so utterly desperate. I thought, Holden is so brilliant, he can't be saddled with this kind of trash. He belongs with me, in the big leagues, not dragged down into the mud by some bottom feeder." So, she paused for dramatic effect, her eyes gleaming with a manic spark. I did Holden a favor. I deleted her frantic text, and then I texted back from his phone. Just 2 words, drop dead. Ha 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 ha. You should have seen it. The pauper actually waited outside in the rain all night. I watched her from the window, soaked like a drowned rat, watching her sink to her knees in despair. It was the best laugh I've ever had. Seriously, didn't I do a great thing? If I hadn't done that, how could Holden have shed that anchor? How could he have become the man he is today? Holden, you should be thanking me. Jen's voice was cut off by the sharp sound of shattering glass. Holden had crushed his wine glass with his bare hand. The fragments were deeply embedded in his palm. Blood mixed with red wine, dripping onto the pristine white tablecloth, a horrifying tableau. But he seemed completely oblivious to the pain. He was staring intensely at Jen, his normally cold eyes now streaked with crimson veins. What did you say? Jen, still basking in her own cruelty, hadn't registered the danger. I said I helped you get rid of that poor. Shut up. Holden violently overturned the mahogany coffee table in front of him. The deafening crash made Jen scream, the shock sobering her instantly. She looked up in terror at the man towering over her, who looked like an enraged lion. "Ho, Holden, what is it?" "I was just kidding." "Kidding?" Holden stumbled to his feet, closing the distance between them. "Are you saying that 7 years ago, she didn't run off with Dean Kincaid, the rich guy? She didn't text me saying she was leaving because I was poor? Are you saying she was in a hospital? She was begging me for help?" His voice grew louder, culminating in a raw, animalistic roar. Jen was so terrified by his presence that she sank back onto the sofa. Holden didn't even spare her another glance. He spun around, his attention locked on me in the corner. "Scout," he choked out my name, a sound like a sob tearing from his throat. "Is she telling the truth? That night, were you waiting for me?" The entire room was paralyzed, everyone too terrified to even breathe. I set the water carafe down. I looked at the truth that had taken 7 years to surface, and my heart felt frighteningly empty. Too late. It was truly, devastatingly too late. I pulled a tissue from my uniform pocket, walked over, and held it out to him. "Mr. Rhys, wipe your hand. It's bleeding everywhere. It's dirty." Holden ignored the tissue. He lunged and grabbed my wrist. "Answer me, Scout. Tell me this isn't real." I looked into his bloodshot eyes and smiled, gently. "And what if it is? Holden Rhys. What if it is?" I repeated softly, the question hanging in the air like smoke. "Does it change the fact that my father died alone in a hospital corridor because I couldn't pay the deposit? Does it change the 7 years you spent building an empire while I spent them burying my family?" Holden's grip on my wrist tightened until my bones groaned, but his face was crumbling. The armor of the billionaire CEO was cracking, revealing the terrified boy beneath. "Why didn't you tell me?" he whispered, his voice shaking. "Later. Why didn't you find me?" I laughed. It was a dry, hollow sound. "Find you?" "Holden," I tried. 3 months later, after the funeral, I came to your dorm. Your roommate told me you transferred. Gone to Stanford on a scholarship Jen's father arranged. Changed your number. Blocked mine. I gently pried his bloody fingers off my wrist. They left a red smear on my cheap uniform. "I didn't leave you for money, Holden. I lost you because I didn't have any." I turned to General. She was huddled on the sofa, her face pale as ash, clutching her Chanel dress like a shield. The arrogance had evaporated, replaced by the primal fear of a prey animal realizing the predator has turned its gaze. "And you," I said, my voice devoid of anger, just weary. "You watched me in the rain. You saw me on my knees. And you laughed." Jen stammered, I was drunk. It was a joke." "Holden, baby, you know I love you." "Get out," Holden said. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried the weight of a death sentence. Holden, please. My father invested in your company. You can't. I said get out. Holden roared, grabbing a bottle of Ace of Spades and hurling it at the wall above her head. It shattered, raining expensive champagne and glass down on her impeccable hair. Jen shrieked and scrambled off the sofa, stumbling in her heels as she ran for the door. The sycophants who had been praising her minutes ago didn't move a muscle to help. They sat frozen, terrified of drawing the wrath of the man bleeding onto the carpet. Holden turned back to me. He looked like a man standing in the wreckage of a bomb blast. Scout, he said, reaching out a trembling hand. We can fix this. I have money now. I have power. I can fix everything. I stepped back. You can't fix a gravestone, Holden. And you can't buy back 7 years. I placed the soiled napkin in his open, bloody palm. I'm off the clock, Mr. Davies. You can deduct the broken glass from my final check. I walked out of Suite V888. I didn't look back. But as the heavy door closed, I heard the sound of a man weeping, a raw, guttural sound that echoed down the gilded hallway of the Carlisle Club. The next morning, my tiny apartment in Queens was besieged. It started with a knock at 6 a.m. I opened the door to find Mr. Davies, the manager of the Carlisle Club, standing in my dingy hallway flanked by 2 men in suits. He looked terrified. Miss Davis, he stammered, wringing his hands. Please, you must come back. Mr. Rhys, he's bought the club. I blinked, sleep still crusting my eyes. He what? He bought the building. The business. Everything. At 4 a.m. this morning. His first executive order was to fire everyone if Scout Davis isn't reinstated as, well, whatever position she wants. I leaned against the doorframe, sipping my lukewarm instant coffee. Tell him I quit. Miss Davis, please. Mr. Davies looked ready to cry. He's sitting in the lobby. He hasn't left. He hasn't slept. He's bleeding, Miss Davis. He refused medical attention until he sees you. I sighed. The stubborn fool. Fine, I said. But I'm not coming back to work. I'm coming to tell him to go to hell. When I arrived at the Carlisle, it was a ghost town. The staff were lined up against the walls like terrified soldiers. In the center of the opulent lobby sat Holden Rhys. He looked wrecked. His suit was rumpled, his shirt stained with dried wine and blood. His hand was wrapped in a crude, blood-soaked bandage. He looked up when I entered, hope flaring in his eyes like a desperate flame. Scout. He stood up, swaying slightly. You bought a club to talk to me? I asked, crossing my arms. I would buy the city if it made you listen, he rasped. Scout, I looked into it. Last night. My team, they found the records. Your father. He swallowed hard. Esophageal cancer. Treatable if caught early. Fatal if the surgery deposit isn't paid. You did your homework, I said coldly. I wired $5 million to your mother's account this morning, he blurted out. For her dialysis. For a new house. For anything she needs. It's done. My hand flew to my face before I could stop it. The slap echoed through the silent lobby. Holden didn't flinch. He took it, his head snapping to the side. How dare you, I whispered, my voice shaking. You think you can just write a check and erase the past? You think my mother wants your guilt money? It's not guilt money, he shouted, desperation cracking his voice. It's retribution. It's what I should have done 7 years ago. Scout, I have billions. I can give you the world. Let me take care of you. Please. I don't want your world, Holden. I wanted you. Back when you were nobody. Back when we shared ramen noodles and dreamed about the future. That girl? She loved you. But you let her die in the rain. I turned to leave. Jen is ruined, he said to my back. I paused. I pulled my capital from her father's firm this morning. Initiated a hostile takeover. By noon, the Sinclair family will be bankrupt. By dinner, they'll be facing SEC investigations for insider trading, evidence I've been sitting on for months, waiting for the right moment. They are finished, Scout. For what she did to you. I turned around slowly. You destroyed her family? I burned it to the ground, he said, his eyes hard and unrepentant. Just like she burned us. I looked at this man, this stranger wearing the face of the boy I once loved. He was ruthless. Efficient. Terrifying. And God help me, a tiny, fractured part of my heart recognized him. Is that supposed to impress me? I asked. It's supposed to show you that I'm not the helpless boy anymore, he said, stepping closer. I can protect you now. No one will ever hurt you again. Not general, not poverty. Not illness. Just, give me a chance. One chance. He sank to his knees right there on the marble floor of the lobby, in front of his employees, in front of the world. The billionaire king, begging the pauper. Let me be your servant this time, Scout. I didn't say yes. I didn't say no. I just walked away. But Holden Rhys was not a man who accepted ambiguity. The siege continued. My debts vanished overnight. My landlord called, weeping with joy, saying the building had been bought and my rent was waived for life. My mother called from the clinic, confused and ecstatic, saying she'd been transferred to a private suite with the best specialists in the country. Everywhere I turned, his shadow was there. Removing obstacles. Paving the road with gold. It was suffocating. And it was seductive. 3 days later, I found him waiting outside my apartment. It was raining, a cruel echo of that night 7 years ago. He was standing by a black town car, soaking wet, holding a cheap umbrella. I bought you dinner, he said, holding up a plastic bag. It wasn't caviar or truffles. It was takeout from the noodle shop near our old campus dorms. I looked at the bag, then at his wet hair plastering to his forehead. You're an idiot, I said, opening the door. Get in before you catch pneumonia. We sat on the floor of my tiny living room, eating cheap noodles out of cartons. For a while, the silence was heavy, filled with the ghosts of everything we hadn't said. Why didn't you marry her? I asked suddenly. 7 years. You were with her. Holden stopped eating. He stared at the noodles. I wasn't with her. Not really. She was a fixture. A connection. She helped me get into rooms I wasn't welcomed in. It was a transaction. She got the arm candy, I got the access. You slept with her. I slept with a ghost, he said quietly. Every time I closed my eyes, I tried to pretend it was you. And when I couldn't, I drank. Why do you think I became a workaholic? Why do you think I built this empire so fast? I was running, Scout. Running from the hole you left. You hated me, I reminded him. I tried to, he corrected. I told myself you were a gold digger. A liar. I fed that hate every day because it was the only thing keeping the pain at bay. If I hated you, I didn't have to miss you. He looked up, his eyes raw. But the moment I saw you in that uniform, the moment I saw you cleaning my blood, the hate vanished. It just evaporated. And all that was left was this terrifying realization that I never stopped loving you. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. I froze. Holden, don't. It's not a ring, he said. He opened it. Inside was a crumpled, yellowed piece of paper. A receipt. From the corner store. For a bottle of cheap red wine. Dated 7 years ago. I kept it, he whispered. In my wallet. Every day. It was my reminder of the day I was happiest. And the day I lost everything. He placed the box on the floor between us. I'm not asking for marriage, Scout. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I'm just asking, can we start over? Can I be the guy who buys you wine? Not the CEO. Just Holden. I looked at the receipt. The ink was fading, barely legible. Like us. My mother needs a kidney, I said. Holden blinked, shifting gears instantly. I'll find a donor. I'll fly in the best team. No, I said. I'm a match. But I couldn't afford the time off work for the surgery and recovery. I couldn't afford the aftercare. Done, he said. Tomorrow. Today. If you do this, I said slowly, it doesn't buy you me. It doesn't buy you a relationship. I know. But, I picked up the receipt, my fingers trembling slightly. It might buy you a second date. Holden let out a breath he seemed to have been holding for 7 years. A genuine, crooked smile broke through the mask of the tycoon. I'll take it. The transplant surgery was a success. For 6 weeks, Holden Rhys ran his multi-billion-dollar empire from a laptop in the waiting room of Mount Sinai Hospital. He slept in the uncomfortable chair next to my bed. He learned to read my mother's vitals monitor better than the nurses. He didn't try to touch me. He didn't try to buy me jewelry. He just existed. He fetched ice chips. He read books aloud when I was too tired to hold them. He argued with the cafeteria staff until they made the jello the way I liked it. He was peeling away the layers of armor, one by one. But the world outside wasn't as quiet. The destruction of the Sinclair family had made headlines. Jen hadn't gone quietly. She had given interviews, painting herself as the victim, painting me as the homewrecker who seduced Holden back with a sob story. The paparazzi were camped outside the hospital. One afternoon, I woke up to find Holden pacing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, his voice low and dangerous. I don't care what it costs. Kill the story. If they run one word about her medical history, I will buy their publication and shut it down. Yes. Scorched earth. He hung up and turned, seeing me awake. His face softened instantly. Hey. Go back to sleep. What story? I asked. He hesitated, then came to sit on the edge of the bed. Jen gave a scoop to a tabloid. She dug up your father's death certificate. She's trying to spin it that you faked the text. That you're running a con. I felt a cold shiver. She won't stop, will she? She's desperate, Holden said grimly. Her father is facing jail time. She's losing her penthouse, her status. She's lashing out. Let her talk, I said tiredly. I don't care. I do, Holden said. She hurt you once. She doesn't get to do it again. He stood up, adjusting his suit jacket. I have a press conference in an hour. To announce the new headquarters. And I'm going to end this. Once and for all. He leaned down and hesitated, then kissed my forehead. It was chaste, gentle, and electric. Watch the TV, he said. An hour later, I watched from my hospital bed as Holden Rhys stood at a podium in front of a sea of microphones. He looked impeccable, powerful, untouchable. The Rhys Group is committed to transparency, he began. Which is why, today, I am releasing the full transcripts of my personal communications from the night of November 12, 7 years ago. Along with the digital forensics report proving the deletion of incoming messages. The room erupted in flashes. Genevieve Sinclair is not a victim, Holden's voice cut through the noise. She is a criminal who intercepted emergency communications, resulting in the death of a good man and the suffering of the woman I love. He looked directly into the camera. Scout Davis is not a con artist. She is the only reason I am standing here. She is the moral compass I lost and was lucky enough to find again. And anyone who harasses her, slanders her, or goes near her will answer to me. He paused, his eyes fierce. And I have very deep pockets, and a very long memory. He walked off the stage. My mother, sitting up in her bed next to mine, lowered her knitting. Well, she said dryly. He certainly has a flair for the dramatic. I touched my forehead where he had kissed me. Yeah. He does. The fallout was immediate. The public tide turned. Jen went into hiding. The Sinclairs were pariahs. But I wasn't watching the news. I was watching Holden. He came back to the hospital that evening, looking exhausted but lighter. He brought a bottle of that cheap red wine, the one from the corner store. The doctor said you can't drink yet, he said, placing it on the bedside table. But I thought we could look at it. I laughed. It was the first time I had genuinely laughed in years. Holden. Yeah? I'm discharged on Tuesday. I know. The car is arranged. I don't want to go to my apartment, I said. He froze. Okay. I have a penthouse in Tribeca. Or a house in the Hamptons. Or. I want to go to the quad, I said. At the old campus. He blinked. Why? Because, I said, reaching out to take his hand. I think we left something there. Tuesday was a crisp autumn day. The campus looked exactly the same, golden leaves, brick buildings, students rushing to class. We sat on the grass in the quad, just like we used to. Holden Rhys, billionaire titan, sitting on the dirt in a $5,000 suit. This is where you told me you'd build me a castle, I said, looking at the library tower. I built a skyscraper instead, he murmured. Less drafty. This is where we drank that wine. And promised forever. He looked at me. The wind ruffled his hair, making him look younger, softer. I broke that promise, Scout. I let go. We both let go, I said. Survival makes you do terrible things. I stopped waiting. You stopped looking. And now? I looked at him. I saw the scars of the last 7 years in the lines around his eyes. I saw the ruthlessness he had learned, but I also saw the tenderness he had saved, locked away in a vault, just for me. Now, I said, we're not those kids anymore. We're damaged. We're cynical. You have blood on your hands, Holden. You destroyed a family for me. I'd do it again, he said instantly. I know. That's what scares me. And that's what makes me think maybe we have a shot. I leaned in. Because the world is cruel, Holden. And I'm tired of facing it alone. He cupped my face, his hand shaking slightly. You will never be alone again. He kissed me. It didn't taste like the cheap wine of our youth. It tasted like expensive scotch, like regret, like redemption. It tasted like a promise that this time, no matter what storms came, he would burn the world down before he let me get wet. Epilogue, 3 years later. The charity gala was in full swing. The Carlisle Club, now the crown jewel of the Rhys hospitality empire, was glittering with lights. I adjusted the strap of my gown, emerald green, Holden's favorite. I walked through the crowd, nodding to senators and celebrities. I was no longer the server in the ill-fitting uniform. I was Mrs. Rhys, the head of the Davis Foundation for Cancer Research. I spotted him across the room. Holden was talking to the mayor, but his eyes were scanning the crowd. Searching. When he landed on me, his face lit up. That secret, soft smile that only I ever saw. He excused himself and cut through the room, ignoring the people trying to grab his attention. He came to my side, wrapping an arm around my waist. Tired, he murmured in my ear. A little. My feet are killing me. Let's bolt, he whispered. I have a bottle of the cheap stuff in the car. And a pizza. You're a terrible influence, I smiled. I'm a man in love, he countered. As we headed for the exit, a woman appeared in our path. She looked older, haggard. Her dress was off the rack, her face heavy with makeup trying to hide the lines of stress. It was Jen. She was working the event, not as a guest, but as an event coordinator's assistant. Checking names on a list. She froze when she saw us. Fear and envy warred in her eyes. Holden stopped. His grip on my waist tightened, his body turning into a shield. Jen opened her mouth, perhaps to apologize, perhaps to beg. I looked at her. I remembered the rain. I remembered the text. Drop dead. But looking at her now, broken, defeated, irrelevant, I realized the hate was gone. It had withered away, replaced by a vast indifference. Excuse us, I said calmly. You're blocking the way. Jen flinched. She stepped aside, lowering her head. We walked past her, out into the cool night air of Manhattan. The city lights were dazzling, a million diamonds scattered on velvet. You didn't say anything to her, Holden noted as the valet brought the car. Some things, I said, looking up at him, don't need to be said. They just need to be left behind. Holden kissed my temple. Ready to go home? Yeah, I said, leaning into him. I'm ready. The car door closed, shutting out the noise, the past, and the pain. We drove off into the city we owned, leaving the stains on the carpet far, far behind.